Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. This is David Bianco. So I've just gotten back from a trip to the EU, and on that trip I visited the island of Ireland in the Dublin area, and I also went to Vienna in Austria. And I also visited some record stores while I was there, and I'm going to share that with you next on the Safe and Sound Texas audio excursion. Well, this trip was a bit of business and pleasure. I was going to a conference to speak in Dublin, Ireland, and I'd never been to Ireland. And it reminded me of a skit that I saw years ago. The Monkees' Michael Nesmith had created a video years ago in the early 80s that was called Elephant Parts. As a matter of fact, it won the first Grammy for a full feature video in music. And then in the mid 80s, he had a series that was on and off during like the summer off seasons called Television Parts. And one of the skits that he showed on there was actually one about someone in college learning Irish through a video series. So I'm going to share that little comedy skit with you now, and then we'll pick up on the excursion.
Irish Language Lab. Lesson 1. Listen and repeat.
Repeat.
Top of the morning to you.
Top of the
Very good. My, what fine-looking potatoes.
My. What
Very
fine-
good. Does the meal come with potatoes?
Does the meal come
Very
with...
good.
Slow down.
Does the suit come with potatoes?
Does it come with potato?
Very good. Does the bride come with potatoes?
Does the bride come with potatoes?
Very good.
Thank you.
Lesson 2. Conversation. In this conversation, you'll play the part of Paddy, and I'll play the part of Mikey.
Mikey.
Respond when you hear the beep. That sounds like this. Beep. Well, Paddy, top of the morning to you. How might you be feeling this fine morning? Oh, what a lovely looking sack of potatoes you've got there. Where might you be going with those potatoes, anyways? Down Killarney way, I would imagine. What do you say we walk together, you and me? Oh, I suppose you want me to carry that big heavy sack of potatoes for you. Is that your idea of a good time? You'll be carrying no potatoes at all, and me be carrying 2 big bushel baskets like I'm some kind of an ass, or a mule or something. You sitting up there in that high house of yours, eating potatoes, Julianne, every night, taking baths in that fancy green soap you get from America. Me and my family scraping and starving. Listen to those sheep, how hungry they are. And another thing, those things you've been saying about me mother and the goat down by the bog. I don't like those things, Paddy. My mother's a decent Irish woman, and even if she does like to carve little anatomically correct figures out of the potatoes and watch them grow old and wrinkly in the sun just like a wrinkled up old self, it's none of your concern. If you be keeping it up, I'm gonna bait in your head with my big shillelagh stick. What do you think of that? Beep.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that little bit of humor as much as I do. It's one that I've remembered for years and years, and every time I hear Ireland, that's what I think of. So my trip to go to Ireland was because I was speaking at a conference meetings there at Dún Laoghaire, which is a coastal town on the Dublin Bay. A very nice hotel with beautiful scene, and also looked great at night as well, and really had a great time there. And before I got into Dún Laoghaire, I actually went through Dublin, its city, and was looking for a few record stores, specifically Tower Records and HMV. So it was a relatively short walk from where the bus let me off there on the river, and a very beautiful scene there. quite a few people in the downtown area walking. One thing you realize is these folks drive on the wrong side of the road. Yeah, they do. The driver is on the right side of the vehicle, and the cars go down the street on the left-hand side, proceeding through the streets. So it's a little bit backwards to what we're used to, at least. Of course, folks there say that we're backwards, so I guess it's all even with that. But my first venture was to Tower Records, so I had it on the map. I did the 2.5 block walk, and I'll be darned if I could find the place. I'll be swear I'm looking up and down, looking for the big sign, Tower Records. I can't find it. So finally, I just really get zoned in on that, look at a couple different maps, and I'm standing in front of a few buildings, and I look in this one, and I see in the very right corner of the open doorway area, there's a sign that says Tower Records with its usual vertical writing in yellow in the corner. Not very easy to see. So going into this particular store, you go in and you're looking around. There's really no signs. And so I went upstairs to the next level, and there were some books at that level. And then I saw there was a Tower Records with an arrow upward. So it was on the third floor, essentially, in this building. So it's not like a storefront that you're used to. And traversing through the store, it wasn't very huge, but it had a lot of product in that area. But as I kept looking and looking and looking, I originally came in seeing, of course, new releases, things of that nature. Happened to see the Beatles' white vinyl of A Hard Day's Night that came out on their album day that they had earlier in October. And had gotten a copy of that through a friend of mine who purchased it there in England for me, not knowing how many copies were going to be available. But walking through the store and checking out the albums and really coming to realize that all of their LPs were new releases. There were not any used records in the facility at all that I could find at all whatsoever. They had a lot of CDs, they had movies, and so I'd say the CD collection of what they had for space and LPs was about the same almost. So a lot of CDs, a fair amount of movies as well. But for me as a collector, I'm not looking for new records. That's very rarely would I find anything there that I would be interested in, because most things I'm sure I could find in the U.S. Now, I did happen to look for and notice there were none of the new Tears for Fears albums that were available. I checked and they said they'd sold out. So that album's selling very well. I think it's number 6 in the UK. Which was good because it's a great record. And so, my Tower Records experience was not fruitful in terms of purchases and was kind of disappointing from the fact that I was looking for used records. So I made my way a few blocks down from that and went to HMV. And again, their products were all up on the second floor in here. So you could either take a lift or elevator, or you could do the stairs. And they were very nicely laid out, but again, all new records. Now, again, they sold some equipment at this facility, which was a little different, some turntables and even sets of turntables with speakers that they had as well. But again, CDs and albums and all new. Now, HMV does release some unique stuff, and I tried to look through that while I was there. But again, there were no titles that were of interest to me. So, that was unfortunately pretty much a bust as well as far as finding anything goes. So after my 3 days in Dublin, I trekked from there to London and then caught a flight to Vienna. My daughter, her husband, and her 2 kids live in the heart of Vienna, and it's a wonderful place if you've never been there to visit. A lot going on. They were just getting set up for the the Christmas season. They have markets that are set up, Christmas markets in a lot of different areas, and they were in full swing to get that going. So seeing a lot of construction and activities going on. Those go from this coming weekend here in mid-November through after just the first of the year. So quite a bit of time there. I was there a couple of years ago at Christmas before the actual Christmas day, and it was great. It was a lot of fun. We happened to have some snow that year as well. And I saw something at one of the places that they're setting up. It was actually a booth where you could record a record, where you could sing and it would actually cut the record right there in front of you. Now, it wasn't operational yet, but I was able to get a few pictures just to see the setup. Kind of impressive for a little booth to get set up, and I'm sure that that's something that maybe there's more and more of out there, but it's the first one I'd run across. But speaking of running across things, there was a new record store called Major Babies, and it was a very nice store. Boy, lots of inventory. This store did have used records as well as new. And they had so much inventory, they had some of it on the floor, and it was even had the tabs behind it to tell you who it was. The bands that had maybe more product and more material that they had, they put it on the floor and had it there so you could thumb through it. They also had sections of shelving like Calyx, where they had artists that were more popular: The Who, The Beatles, Eric Clapton, Queen, Deep Purple, and they had those segregated out of the main area where the records were. So it was quite an interesting setup. They sold CDs there as well. Now, one thing about the records in the rock area is that a couple of things. The records that were in there were very tight. So the ability to really look at them easily was not there. So you had to literally pull some records out of the front of the section to be able to actually thumb through the records. And even worse than that, as you got toward the back, I'd say about 7/8 of the way back, there was a shelf unit above it that was holding some records, maybe 10 or so of a certain record or band, and it was overlapping your ability to get down under there to see those records in that last 1/8 segment, which was something I'd never run across before. So not only was it tight and you had to pull records out to be able to just thumb through, but you literally had to pull the records from the very back forward to even make them visible, let alone get a clean chance at flipping through them. So just a case of a lot of inventory and not enough space, I would say, is the bottom line there. But I did pick up a few things there. Picked up something for my buddy Brad that he was looking for on this trip. I also found something for another gentleman on this trip, so that's always good. A couple of things for myself. My son got a couple of Taylor Swift CDs that he didn't have. Okay, at least he felt like he was contributing to the economy there. So prices at this particular store were, I'd say, reasonable. They weren't outlandish. They were in the range I would generally expect things to be. And so all in all, it was a nice store, clean. It seemed like there was a lady that ran the place and she really knew what they had. Any questions I had, she was able to answer very quickly. And again, at this store, I asked about the new Tears for Fears album, and she said, no, we're out. We're expecting more next week, but we're sold out of that. So, which is what I found across, and I didn't see it in Ireland as well, as I said. So not seeing it here in Vienna at the stores I went to. So that album's definitely selling very well. But it was a nice store, a nice new store, and I think they had a lot of records for sale that were 50% off. I picked a few up, like a Donovan's Greatest Hits, a double album on Epic, Yellow Epic label. And I think it was, the price on it was $10 and it was 50% off, so $5. Really clean record. So, I mean, just do your digging. You know, it was hard to dig under there. A lot of these shelves were under shelves, and you know, you had to work at it a bit. But a nice new store, nice new one to see there in Vienna, called Major Babies. And the last shop I went to that was new for me, at least, was one called Alt Plus New, Neu. And it's a nice shop, a little bit tight inside. Quite a few people were in there. And on the outside, they actually had a rack of some CDs and LPs that were very reasonably priced, very cheap, like €1, just to kind of get them, I'm sure, out of their inventory. Nothing that I really recognized in the LP area, at least. Nothing that I wanted. But once in a while, you'll find an interesting pickup in those. But inside, they did have a lot of used albums. This was probably the biggest amount of used albums that I saw, and almost everything was used. Pretty well curated in terms of selection, and they had a really unique system for some of the storage they had, where the LP racks were such that they were, you know, you look down on them and thumb through records, but on top it had a rolling cabinet of it that had CDs on top. So you just slid it over and made the albums viewable and visible. So they basically got twice the economy of space and scale in that square foot that they had for having LPs and CDs. Thought it was very unique. They needed it relative to the space that they had. And they did have some unique records from ones, I mean, that I hadn't seen very often. Not necessarily ones that I wanted, but definitely some bands and some titles that I don't see that often. So definitely interesting selection, and one which I probably is on my revisit site when I go back to Austria to see what they have, because it was a little new and unique, quite a wide variety, and also, again, picked up a couple of records for some other people that I thought were in really good conditions, and ones that I hadn't seen much of. And being, let's say in this case, German presses, usually those are usually use the same plates in many cases as the UK and can be quieter vinyl. So all in all, I thought it was a good experience. Definitely will go back to that particular store. So for me, really not much that I got for myself. I got like a Paul McCartney 12-inch. I mentioned the Donovan one that I got. I mean, I really didn't find a lot on this trip at all. I kind of managed my time kind of tightly too, but I was able to pick up some things for some other folks, and that's part of the hunt as well. So as always, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so by clicking on the bell. And if you want notifications, hitting the all option. A thumbs up or like is appreciated, as are any of your comments or questions. So thanks for traveling with me this time on our audio excursion, and we'll catch you next time. Take care, everybody.